Okay. Well, everybody, welcome to the Sisterhood. We are here and we are going to have a great conversation today. My name is Michelle, your host. I'm coming from Connecticut, and my co host,
Hello, everyone. I'm Rochelle, your co-host, and I'm in Chicago.
yes, thank you. Hey, Ro, how you doing, girl?
Good one.
And today we have a very, very special guest, Tina. She is joining us and she is going to talk about her journey and she's going to talk about the bumps in the road, how she's excelled. I personally know Tina. I've met her at the Women of Power conference, and it has been a pleasure getting to know her and to see her and to hear her. And I would love for her to share her story with you guys.
Well, thank you, Michelle, and absolutely the same. Such a pleasure to be a guest on this Sisterhood podcast. So, I'm Tina Newsom Lee, and I am originally from the Bronx, New York, and currently I live in Long Island, New York. I am managing counsel.
Okay.
Grand. Welcome. Welcome.
Yes, and this is
So,
not underwriting, so we get another perspective, ladies.
exactly. We've done a ton in underwriting from that perspective. Tina, you're on the legal end of the business. Kind of talk a little bit about your journey, background. How do you even get into law from that perspective? And what was your, passion to decide to go and pursue a career in law?
Absolutely. So, I'll start with the law question. I always wanted to be a lawyer. I am, and people probably say that to this day, I love to fight for people rights. And so my role model was Thurgood Marshall. Growing up, I just admired how he just had this cause and fought for it, right? Humanity. To me, it's all about human rights. And so that's why I wanted to become a lawyer. I thought I would go that pathway. However, I
Hmm.
fell into insurance. Insurance was not anything I considered. I actually fell into insurance after a number of bumps in the road. Michelle talked about bumps in the road. I don't know if we have enough time to talk about my bumps, but it was a lot of bumps in the road on my legal career. I was not one of those ones who was fortunate enough to get a job out of law school. So took
Oh,
whatever job I could get and then tried a lot of different areas from criminal to family to landlord tenant, whatever. Quite honestly, at some point you need a job, so you get whatever you can get. But I did gain invaluable experience, build up skills. And I probably will say about 6 years into my career, a friend of mine told me about this job in insurance. Didn't really even ask her what it was about. Right. So got the job. And from then on, 20 plus years, I've had a career in insurance. Never again would have thought that that was even a possibility. I never even knew about it, but it's been a rewarding career, I'll say.
That seems to be the common theme that people are falling into insurance,
let's
especially
see.
women of color. Because I fell into insurance with inroads. Bro fell into
I
insurance right
just
after.
fell into it just after college, randomly trying to find, like you, Tina, trying to find a gig, right? And a friend mentioned, let's go to this agency, did that, and it was an insurance carrier that was hiring. So that's how I happened upon insurance, quite like yourself. So I know you said you spent about 6 years where you're in private practice doing different roles, and then you decided to take a role in insurance. So talk about a little bit about that first role in insurance, and your experience going into a industry that you didn't have any background or level set with, and you also said it's been a very rewarding career, and I think all of us could definitely agree. Like, I love insurance, I love what I do, and I'm glad it found me because it has
Yep.
been definitely rewarding from that piece of it.
I totally agree, Rochelle. So my first job in insurance, I mentioned that I had a lot of different other jobs, but you
Hmm.
build up skills. So I was a litigator, which means I love to try cases, argue motions. So that was my specialty. That is my background. And so my first job in insurance was defending a carrier. Again, going to
Okay.
court, doing trials,
Mhm.
doing motions. Those are easy skills, transferable skills that I was able to bring to insurance. I think what's interesting about it, though, is when you are a lawyer working in an insurance company, particularly if you're a claim lawyer, you come in and you work for an office. For example, now you each insurance carrier has like a law office, and you really don't realize that you are actually working for, whether it's an insurance company, you're kind of isolated in a silo. So for me, I'll say, so I did that again, trying cases as a lawyer. But then I will say there was a period of time, and I'll say maybe about 10 years ago, when I sort of picked my head up and realized, I actually work for an insurance company, so many other opportunities. And
Mhm.
the reason I say it's fulfilling and I love it is because, again, going back to my original purpose and desire of being a lawyer, I wanted to help people. And I realized that in insurance, we really do help people. We talk about we help people in times of when if they're dark times, and when I really started getting myself involved in other stuff outside of the legal aspect of the company, marrying that as well as being able to make impact, volunteering, all of those other things, it really brought me a lot of value. And I realized you don't necessarily have to go into a public sector to make a difference. And so I think that's why I find it very rewarding. I think it's unlimited opportunities, regardless really of what major you were.
I think you make a really great point that you can still impact the community without being in the public sector, even though we are
Exactly.
private, and we still do things for the community and we still impact a lot of people in their lives.
Right. I think that's one
Absolutely.
of the focus, the philanthropy piece of it and the volunteerism, that insurance. People never think about from that piece of it, but carriers have definitely supported definitely various causes throughout for employees. I remember being at a carrier and it was a shelter I would volunteer at, and I was like, I want to do something. I was like, oh, well, I mean, you want to donate money, you want to get, a team going over. And so we kind of set that up, and we've been doing it for like probably 14 years, a couple carriers and a couple agencies from that piece of it. So you talk a lot about that. And that's one great aspect about the insurance industry. You dropped the nugget. You said unlimited opportunity. Kind of talk a little bit about that and frame that out a bit for us, the unlimited opportunity in the insurance industry.
Absolutely, Rochelle. So again, I'm a lawyer, but I think you have transferable skills that you don't realize. For example,
Mhm.
maybe I might not stay being a lawyer forever in the company. And honestly, my pathway, I might not. So the unlimited opportunities to engage with your underwriters, with your with our keyword is collaboration. So when
Yes.
you're working in you're really collaborating with every area. Interestingly, it was when I got involved in some of our diversity networks that I realized all these different roles. I didn't know underwriting, actuaries, I mean, risk control, really.
No.
And the commonality is if you have skills, you can transfer those skills to
Yeah,
different
skills.
areas. And that's why I really believe it's unlimited opportunities. It's no secret that, look, a lot of lawyers, or I'm not going to say a lot, but some lawyers don't, they want to leave the practice. And the good part about it is if I did want to leave the practice, there are other opportunities. I don't have to leave my company, but
Okay.
there are other opportunities that I can take these skills that I've learned, transfer them, and that's why I say it's unlimited opportunities.
Absolutely. I've definitely had a couple friends in the business who came from the claim side and went to the underwriting side, or one of the like operation sides went to the underwriting side, or on the underwriting side went to the learning and development side. So I'm glad you spoke about the unlimited opportunity, because we definitely want our audience to understand the plethora of opportunity within insurance. And then getting there doesn't mean you just have to stay in that one area or that one niche. You can take those skills and transfer yourself throughout the company in various roles. Like I've done a little bit of that myself as well too.
I think that's wonderful, Shell. And one of the things I've been trying to do is I think the three of us said we sort of fell into insurance. I've been really trying to get people who look like me to really understand it doesn't sound sexy, but it is one of the best kept secrets.
Yeah.
It is, right? Because you can make
Yeah.
decent, you can make a really good salary, not
Mhm.
even just salary, all the other perks. Again, philanthropy, you can give back, you can volunteer, you can get that like heart, soul, purpose fed. And so
Mhm.
I really have been trying to tell people don't underestimate it, because I think some of us, again, who want to have these careers of giving back, maybe I want to give back. I think I can only do it by being maybe a public defender as a lawyer, or going to one of the government agencies. No, you can do that right here. And again, you can make a good life for your family.
Oh, yes. And
Absolutely.
and insurance is one of those industries that in times of recession or any other times of turmoil, everybody still needs insurance.
That's right.
Insurance.
It's
Absolutely.
still
That's
here.
right.
It is still here. So Tina, can you just go into your exact role that you do? So you're actively litigating cases at this point?
So right now, I'm not, Michelle. Right now, I'm managing a team of about 60 something attorneys, paralegal support
Okay.
staff, and we operate on the claim side. So what that means is, from my particular role, we defend the company. So lawsuits that come in from a claim perspective, let's say, for example, if someone gets in an accident and they file a claim, my office defends those claims. So we partner with the insurer. We're considered like the claim lawyers. I used to litigate, but now that I manage, it's sort of hard to do that as well. So my day-to-day job pretty much consists of strategy sessions with the various partners. Again, I said for our company, collaboration is the big key. So we collaborate with investigators, with claim professionals to solve some of these cases.
Okay. I am very curious because every time I get in anywhere near a claims person, I'm like, what is the craziest claim that you have had that you've had to deal with? Because I've heard some stories.
There have been some interesting ones. I'm trying to think like the craziest one. I mean, I know years ago we had one where we were trying to help our claim partners defend one where it was something involved with fraudulent, and I think the person was intoxicated, or we thought they were. But then you get into situations whether or not you can use that evidence in court. So probably something along those lines. I really don't even remember what happened, but that's probably
Well, I think it just highlights that you see so many different things, and
yeah,
Rochelle and I, we see a lot of the underwriting side. We're assessing the risk on the front end, but then you guys deal with the back end of and actually dealing with the client, and
right.
seeing how the policy language that somebody else had crafted it actually work and get tested in the courts, and all of it. There's a whole gamut of things, and want to make sure that we highlight that you don't have to be sales. You could be in legal. You can go and test our policy language, see if defend it, and
That's right. That's right. You make a good point, Michelle, because again, going back to that collaboration piece. So sometimes you write that language and then now it's
hmm
time to defend that case in court. And the court takes a strict interpretation. Maybe it's ambiguous, maybe it's not clear. So then the
Mhm.
lawyers have to come in and state the case. But it really gets it gets into a lot of different issues. It's interesting when you realize you write it, then the claim professional makes a decision to pay or deny, and then we have to defend it. But then if we think it's fraud, but then you have to prove it's fraud, it's really
Right.
it's an interesting cycle.
well, and
Right.
then I may be getting a little bit too technical because uh, this is just fascinates me, the whole collaboration scene, and I know that companies go through policy rewrites and making sure that the language is appropriate. But a lot of the people who I interact with don't have that legal background. They have either just the underwriting background of come up and really like the language and understanding it. How often do you get involved in coming into a policy rewrite and into the policy construction of a whole entire new policy?
So that's interesting. Not too often, but I'll say
Mm,
recently we have been having those discussions because I
Mhm.
think one of the things too is obviously, I don't want to say the bottom line, but we want to help grow the business. All of us work for the
Mhm.
company. And so I think when you start to think about if we want to move into another state, maybe that doesn't necessarily even have the aspect of insurance. Let's say, let's just take something like no fault. We get into the discussions because we want to help our partners understand the risks, right?
mhm.
What we see
Mhm.
from a litigation perspective, what we've seen through our research. So we get into those discussions. I don't get into those too often, but we are dealing with the issue right now as we think about growing the business in a particular state.
Right. I
Okay.
think you talk a good point. On under the piece of collaboration, right? I think that probably would be a good idea if you're deciding to, new products come out, right, and or rewrite the forms to have everyone at the table, from the underwriter to the legal drafting team who's drafting the language, and even the litigating firms who potentially may litigate, so that you can have a perspective of saying, hey, well, if we open this up, this is exposure that we potentially may be taking. And I get it. Sometimes people say, well, the claims people and the legal people, they're going to say no to everything, right? Because it's like, oh, you're walking on a bomb. Like, it's
Oh.
exposure. It is like, you're going to say no. But at the same token, it would give a fresh review of everything, and you kind of could walk into it kind of knowing what the ultimate exposure could be, and if you really want to take that exposure on or not. So I just thought about that as you were talking about the collaboration piece and what you got and what you and your team really do for the insurance carrier from that piece of it. Because on the front end, for me, I'm trying to write the business. I'm trying to
Right.
win. I'm
Mm-hmm.
using the tools that are at my disposal, whether it's the policy form, endorsements to enhance things of that nature. I don't know what I'm giving away or not, right? You said these are things I could use. I'm giving it away, right? I'm sweetening the pocket, the deal on the back
That's
end.
right.
Claims are like, oh my God,
What
you
was your
said yes
intent?
to this.
Rochelle, you get that call.
Exactly.
What was your intent?
Absolutely, right? I mean, as an underwriter for many years I've gotten calls. Like, I
Yep.
mean, the great thing is that my underwriting documents support what my intent was, and they can read it from there. And it wasn't they have to interpret what I was trying to do. But that is very important, definitely for a carrier. And the bottom line, when you think about it,
That's right, Rochelle. And you make such a good point when you talked about perspective, because isn't it important to have different perspectives at that table? And I don't know if we're
table.
going to get into the whole importance of diversity and diversity of
Oh,
thought,
we
but
we
that is
are.
critically
Absolutely.
important to bring different perspectives. Because, Rochelle, guess what? I might need you to come testify one day, but it's also important, like you said, your intent, right? And so I think it's really important to have different perspectives and different people just kind of pushing and pulling so that we get to the right place.
Mm.
Exactly. And I think you said that because that was going to be my next question. And that's why it's so important when you're in corporate America, in businesses, to have different perspectives. And when you bring in diversity from all aspects, then you get a different viewpoint of how the coverage may be leveraged and used, right? I mean, because we all come to the table with a bag of different experiences, right? And how we review and what our perspective is totally different, just even coming from different parts of the country, right? We'll have a different
Mm-hmm.
view or
Absolutely.
perspective about things. So being a person of color, definitely a woman, coming in and having a different perspective, I think Michelle can attest to certain things that I can't, like understanding the policy language from a mom's perspective is different from being a maybe single woman or someone who's freshly new out of college, their perspective and walking into the business. And sometimes we in the business we miss that, right? Because I think we're so one note and so singular in that aspect of just really being a really male dominated white industry.
Right, right. You hit such an important point. We're dealing with an issue that's impacting the industry, and one of the issues is from a legal perspective, social inflation, and we're seeing these exponential jury verdicts. And to your point, I often wonder that when you put people to the table, and we're seeing it in different pockets, which impact different demographics. My perspective, because I come from some of these areas, I can tell you for the most part why a jury may be willing to look at the big bad insurer as this big bad insurer, you know, the opportunity of realizing the importance of representation. If
Okay.
let's just be honest, if they constantly see people who don't look like them, it does bring a different lens. And I think it's really important to understand that if we don't wrap our minds around the fact that different perspectives and different representation is needed, it does impact the bottom line. And I think we're
Bottom line.
somewhat seeing that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think about homeowners policy, right? I'm in an underserved community that's
Mhm.
predominantly an African American, right? And so I had a agent come, and I have been with this carrier for like 15 years, and he's like, "You're paying way too much." And I'm like, "No, they give me the best discount." I call him every year. I tell him, blah blah blah. They give me 2% off, blah blah blah. And he's like, "No, with your credit worthiness, your home, blah blah blah." He was just like, "Well, you're getting a higher rate because of where you live." And I was like, "Oop."
Mm.
So, oop. And then he was like, there are some carriers who won't even insure you in this area, not because there are high claims, just because of the area you live in. And I was like, so taken aback. Although I'm in insurance,
Right.
I
Yeah.
thought I did the
So
business,
so so they
and I
so
was
they
getting
were
the best deal.
so they legitimately just they just copped to redlining.
Mm.
Absolutely. And redlining was, I've done a research project on
Mhm.
redlining. Redlining was enforced by government,
It
actually.
was.
So
It
that
was.
was, one of the things that had happened, in previous past to underserved communities like myself, redlining, right? And some of those, long existing policies where they may not be written, they're still followed. by
Mhm.
banking industries, things of that nature. But that was an eye-opening experience to me because I'm in insurance, right? I'm an underwriter. I know
Right.
what to call up
Mhm.
the underwriter for my personal lines and tell them all the good buzzwords. And then he came in and was like, "No, Rochelle, like, let me show you, compare what you were getting to what I could get you, right? With a
Mm,
carrier who is going to partner with you and be a very good partner with you based on your credit score, based on your home and all the security and all this good stuff you have in place." And he really dropped my rate by 40%. And
wow.
I was just
Oh my
like,
gosh.
got an umbrella included, honey. I mean, a personal umbrella with that, not like physical umbrella, but
Yeah,
insurance
no,
umbrella,
no,
Mhm,
yeah.
right.
personal line, auto. Like I felt like that was a bonus, all inclusive. Like I mean, because of how much I saved, I was able to get that umbrella, and I had no clue, even
Yeah.
being in the business.
Right.
you know.
Right.
Well, it just it shows a lot of the whole this the disparity that is still out there, and that the prejudices that we are actively trying to fight and to combat with the whole diversity and inclusion and making our voices heard and it being. I don't even know if we're really being brought to the table. People are saying that they're bringing us to the table, but are we really being brought to the table? We're trying to like make our own table, and I'm shoot, you know
Mhm.
what? We got a lawyer here and we got two underwriters. We just need an actuary, and who else we need? We need IT, and
Right.
we can have our own
Good.
insurance company here.
Your
Right.
mom can come out of retirement. Tell her we need it for
Right.
2 years, and she can help us out together, right?
We might as well just have like sisters and insurance, actual
Right.
insurance. Get your
We already
Exactly.
have
policy
the
through us.
name.
Get your policy through us.
Right.
Exactly. But we won't discriminate based
We
on
won't
Right.
anything.
discriminate. We won't
Absolutely not.
discriminate.
All are welcome.
Yes, yes. But yeah, and I know Tina, you touch base on getting involved in the diversity networks at your company, and how is that? And it is opened your eyes to other areas of insurance and the other groups. But how has that impacted you in terms of DNI and just like you have such a fire whenever I talk to you, and and I love it. And how's that impacted? How has it? How have you grown? How like what do you see? What can you? I know you have nuggets there, so.
I have grown, Michelle, in it. And I think joining the diversity networks really helped change I want to say has transformed my career experience because I think it is so important for people like us who often don't feel seen and heard to have that space to be able to be seen and heard. And I'll tell you, the one thing that changed for me was bringing your whole self to work. I
Mhm.
embraced that. Listen, I had a lot of insecurities coming in. People say, "Oh, but you're a lawyer." Yeah, but you don't know my background, right? I come from the Bronx. I grew up poor. I was on welfare. We were homeless, right? A lot of different things in my experience
Nothing.
that they weren't stripped away once I became a lawyer. I was carrying this baggage. Then I'm in this environment where there's a whole lot of white people. I don't see a lot of people who look like me up. So I think it impacted how I brought myself to the table. As a matter of fact, I was invisible a lot of times. Some of it was because of
Mhm.
my own
Mm.
being in my basically being in my own way. And so the diversity networks, this whole call to bring your whole self. One day, and I don't know what snapped, and I actually think it's a combined effort of me really digging into myself spiritually, like getting into the word. I believe very much in my faith, saying, I'm going to be Tina. I'm going to bring my whole self to work because I know I add value. And so, because I know I have value, I know that other people have value. Again, that's the faith aspect of me. And so I am on fire. I'm passionate about it because when people talk about DE and I, to me, it's humanity. It's a human issue
Mhm.
about, again, my hashtag, all God's children. We really are. So why is it that some of us feel not just included, but excluded? I'm
Mhm.
determined to help break that because, listen, this is not about us saying Black women want to own everything, right? But we're saying why are we constantly the people missing from the table? Why are we constantly look up and don't see people who look like us? And not just us, other groups as well. So I am on fire about it because I think it's a human issue to make sure every single person feels like their voice is heard, then no group is excluded. And I just think it takes us to use our voices to really make a difference.
Absolutely. On fire. That's what I'm
On
talking about
fire.
right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you raised a lot of great points. I like the point of you saying we're all humans. This is a human problem, right? I think so many people want to segregate and put people into boxes and say, oh, well, this is the Black problem. This is the Asian problem. This is, the Native problem or indigenous people problem, but it's a human problem. We all face very similar issues and problems, especially when we're going against a system that's a systematic process to not provide a equitable and equal opportunity to whether it's education, whether it's job opportunity, whether it's housing, whether it's abortion rights, right? So
Right.
we look at that, and when you look at it and you start tearing those walls down, then you kind of see and you're able to come to the table and bring, like you said, your whole self, right? And I think I definitely experienced some of the things you talk about, like the insecurity and a lot of the things I've experienced in my career, and like the bring your whole self. I knew I wasn't bringing my whole self because I was like, they're not going to accept it, right? Or I'm going to come off very, for them, very different. So, the whole thing of like, I grew up in underserved community, my mom sometimes didn't always have, job security, right? And so maybe we did have to go on welfare for a portion of time, right? Or just coming from a public school education and not, knowing how to use we and they
Right.
properly and trying to ensure that when I speak, oh, did I say that most appropriately? Did I pronounce that most appropriately? So those are all the barriers. And this is just for one meeting, right? You think about like you go through your career, but these are things that you face and you're a little scared of, like for the classism, right? Sexism. And then you're like, if I speak up and if I say something wrong, then they're going to think I'm stupid and dumb and I don't know my job, or I don't deserve to be here and I'm here because of only affirmative action. So those are barriers of like trying to bring your whole self to work. But I think in this atmosphere we've created, we're start to create, platforms where people feel secure and they can bring themselves to work. Because I know I've had friends tell me, hey, when you walk into the room, you're judged automatically. So bring your A game 100%. Like you can't have an off day, right? We have off days. We're human. We have an off day where you might not feel like it, or you might be, not your A game. And then you're judged singularly on that one interaction, and that's it. And that could be your whole career. After that, I've seen where people just down here, like they've had this great career, one misstep, and they're like, shoo, and then they're out of the industry.
It seems like it's just really disproportionate with women of color or just a minority in general, and that our counterparts, white guys, they get all the chances in the world. They can come up, but we could go down that rabbit hole and be there forever. But Tina, I want to talk about you said that you at one point you felt invisible. You were invisible, and then you got yourself out of that and bring your whole self, and the DNI networks kind of helped on that one. But what changed? Like, talk about when you were invisible, like how that felt, because I know there's definitely women out there that feel invisible, like they haven't had that catalyst of change that really like it's going to push them out.
So I think when you feel invisible in the corporate setting, you're in a meeting and maybe everyone else gets the eye contact and you don't, or no one asks for your opinion, or you're not even invited to some of the meetings that your counterparts or people who you might even have a higher level are invited to, and you just feel invisible. You feel as if you don't matter. And I think I'll say, I think what helped again, I think a combination of me doing some soul work, of me just doing it anyway, trying. I believe in that Nike saying just do it, because what I found is some people will embrace you, but you also have to take the risk that some people won't. Some people will categorize you. We're all three Black women. We know the stereotype Black women are angry, but guess what? Everybody is angry at a time, right? We're not oblivious to it. But I say my anger, right? I have righteous indignation, righteous anger over injustice, but I'm not going to castrate you. It's how I show up with it. And I think no matter what I've learned, no, some people just aren't going to like you, and you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with saying, I know I bring value, showing that value. and again, I sort of do it with a smile as well. So if you don't like me, I don't know why you don't like me.
Let me tell you, I struggle with that one. And growing up, Rochelle and I have had this a lot of conversation already, and we're gonna have a whole podcast on, the whole code switching and back and forth. And I had a different background growing up. I grew up in the white suburbs, so
Mhm.
I wasn't white enough for the white kids, and I wasn't black enough for the black kids.
Yeah,
So I've
yeah.
never felt like I've been accepted,
Mm,
and that is a hard thing for me. I don't know about anybody else, but it's a hard
mm,
thing for me to embrace the whole thing of it's okay for people to not like you,
yep,
because I've always tried to
Hmm.
have people like me,
yeah.
and probably
Right.
to my detriment at some points, but we all have those issues.
Hmm.
But that's a hard lesson to learn,
It
that
is.
it is okay for people to not like you. You're just not going to change their opinion, and
Yeah,
you can't let it hold power over you.
yeah.
Um, how did you get? And this is for me personally, how did you get to that point
Mm.
and being able to accept it that people aren't going to like you,
Yeah,
like some people?
honestly, how I got to that point, and you heard me kind of say a little bit about
Yeah.
my faith, and I'll
Okay.
tell you, I have these practices that I started doing, and I clearly remember January 1st, 2015. I said, I grew up Christian. I said, Lord, I'm going to put you first, and for me, that meant putting practices into place. First thing I do in the morning, get out, go read my Bible. I really center myself, and some people meditate, but that's what I do to center myself in the morning, and I just started doing those practices in my life, worship, I'm working out, my praise and worship music. So all of those things
Mhm.
for me was really important because I'll tell you, I knew I needed it because sometimes the weights that we carry are too much for us to bear. And I need that faith aspect to like take it, Lord, right? Just take it from me. And so for me,
Mhm.
being really honest, really real. And I said, I read a book, and I think it was by Andy Stanley, and he talked about learning to live for an audience of one. And that changed me because I said, you know what? I know that if I'm not perfect, but if I'm trying to live a life that God's called me to live, which is to treat my neighbor right, to love my neighbor as myself, then I have to say, Lord, deep down, are you satisfied with me? And if you are, not everybody's gonna like me. And I'll tell you one thing I learned and which got me to that point. They hated Jesus without a cause. So if they hate Jesus, who the heck do I think people are not
Like,
gonna
oh,
like
yeah.
you? And I
With
gotta tell you,
Tina.
that got me to that point.
Oh my God. Okay.
That is
I
hilarious.
I will believe that. Testify on my behalf, please.
Right. I think you get a good point of that piece of like being okay with people not accepting you, right? That's one atmosphere. And then in the sense of not, I had to let go of looking at people and thinking potentially that either they're for or against me, right? I'm just
Hmm.
like, I'm show up, because I would, have friends that are like, okay, good, these people are showing up to the meeting. I feel comfortable. I can speak, I can talk, right? Because I'll have
Mhm.
my little cheerleading
Yes.
squad. If these people don't show up, then I'm going to sit in the back of the room and be quiet. You know what? I don't care anymore.
Hmm.
At this juncture in my life, career, the things I've experienced, I don't care. So I'm going to say
Yeah.
what I want to say. If I don't feel like I'm going to add value to the conversation, I'm not going to say anything unless you ask me specifically. But for the most part, it's probably going to be what's already be repeated in the room. Like I was in a meeting and afterwards, a person came up to me and was like, "You didn't say anything in the meeting. I don't want people to think that you don't bring value to this company." Well, and
No.
that I had no value to bring. So I could reiterate myself or I could just say things to talk because we've always know those people who always add stuff and they're not adding any more
Hmm.
value, right? But I had to take that construct of like the onus of I have to, right? I think at the end of the day, to be authentically true to yourself, you know what value you want to bring and you want to drop, and the value you don't bring and you don't want to drop to the table, right? And in my personal aspect, I knew that I've done that all day long. But in corporate and my professional career, not so much. Like I would just create things to say. And I'm like, that's stupid. You know what? I'm done with that. I'm not
Yeah.
living up to anyone else but for my standard. And if my boss had a conversation with me, about something, maybe I'm not living up to my aspect of the job I'm doing. That's one thing, right? But at the end of the day, I had to learn those things. Like, I don't care anymore. I'm
And you
not going to
made such
just
a
say
good point.
something.
Yeah. And you know what, Rochelle, we're human, right? And I'm not gonna sit and say it doesn't hurt when people don't like you, especially if you
Mhm.
think some people, you're part of let's say a black woman, you're like, why do I get this reception from people? We're human, so it does bother you. I'm not going to say it doesn't hurt, but you just push past it and say, as long as I check myself, and again have that trusted set of people who know me and who can give me that honest assessment. Once I've cleared that, then I have to be
Yeah.
okay with it, even if it does bother me.
Right.
Mm. Oh
That
my
is so,
goodness.
I mean, finding your way through the pathways of life is just hard, right? And
Yeah.
then you
It
get
is.
set into a different environment and you got to find your pathway through that. And that's totally different from your personal. And sometimes I'm like, it is so easy. Like I had a friend, I'm like, it's just easy. You show up and you could be you at work and outside of work.
Hmm.
I show up, I bring my work self, and then I have my personal self, and never marry the two. And like you said,
Mm.
bringing your whole self. And now I'm at a point where I'm just going to bring me, right?
Yeah.
This is who I am. This is the person I am. I mean, I used to not lie to people to where I live, but I wouldn't specifically tell them where I lived, right?
Mm.
As I was in the hood still, and I didn't want them to have a perception of me.
Right.
But then
Mm.
at the end of the day, I'm doing myself a disservice and my community because it's people
Right.
like me in my community, and you need to
Right.
know that because it's not just thugs, right? And so I had to
Mm.
learn that well too. Like Rochelle, at the end of the day, if they're gonna cringe or look like, oh my god, and I had it from both ends. Definitely, people of color who will be like, "Oh my God, you live in that neighborhood? I can't
Hmm.
believe." And then other people, white people, most of the white people were like, "Cool."
Right.
I think they had no clue where it was, but at the end of the day, like, "Oh, cool, great," kind of thing. But
Oh,
yeah,
right.
that's recent. Like that's not a 10 years ago. This is recent.
It's a
When I say
growth.
recent,
Oh
I
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's growth.
it's
It's all
Growth.
types of growth.
Hmm.
All types of
absolutely,
growth.
absolutely.
Oh my goodness, just went down. But I do want to get to the question that we did get from a viewer that I
Okay.
believe that Tina, I think that you will have a lot of insight on. So the question that we did receive was, I would love to learn more about how you can still be heard without coming off as harsh or getting emotionally upset. How can you be an effective communicator without being harsh and or passive?
So I've thought
Yeah.
about that, and I think it's so important to be truthful, right? So I will never compromise. I think my convictions and being truthful. But I think I've learned, again, and if I'm talking too much about the Bible and stuff, let me know. But I always go back to like some nuggets about be slow, quick to listen and slow to speak. And so what I try to do is center myself around that type of stuff. And again, I'm truthful. So sometimes the truth hurts, but it's how you say it. My mother always taught me growing up, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. I think that's true 98% of the time, right?
Mhm.
I think there's a way that you can speak truth to power. I think it's needed. And if we don't, we do a disservice. Because to me, when you have that platform and that seat, you have to be honest and speak truth. But it's how you do it. Now, let's be honest. Recently, some conversations are super uncomfortable, talking about racism, talking about the inequity, black people talking about slavery are uncomfortable. But what I've shared with some leaders, it's uncomfortable for white people hearing it. And again, I learned that some people don't even like to be called white people. So, but that's uncomfortable for them. But
That's
it's
a new
also
one.
right.
That's a new one
It's
for me.
yeah, it's uncomfortable for us also to talk. But if we don't talk about it, right, then to me, we bury this thing as if it's, and we've been burying it for too many years. And I think that's why
Yes.
we're at this place.
Mhm.
So I think I've learned to have brave, honest conversation, but try to kind of hear somebody out too and hear their heart. Again, never compromise the truth. I always speak truth to power, but I think I try to do it in a way that I listen. And of course, again, I talked about righteous anger, but it's not like I'm not yelling at you. I'm not accusatory of you. I'm trying to also see it from your perspective. A
Perspective.
perfect example is as we talk about this, diversity, equity, inclusion. I think what gets in the way sometimes, particularly white men, is that people say, well, what's in it for me? Well, that's not benefiting me. Well, if you have these things that benefit them, what is that going to lead for me? The truth of the matter is, I understand that rationale. It's flawed. So let's talk. And so I could explain to you why that's not reality. But I think it's kind of removing the attack on people and trying to honestly be as calm as you can. It talks about emotional intelligence, but never compromising the truth. And I honestly believe the reason people are able to embrace it when I say it is because number one, they've gotten to know me. They know I'm genuine, I'm authentic, and I am going to be truthful. But at the same time, I'm going to be receptive to hear what you have to say because I don't know everything either, but I'm not going to compromise my convictions or the truth.
Mission.
Mm.
Absolutely. Do you feel like now you have more of a space has been created for you to express yourself and provide, your perspective and feedback?
Absolutely. But I don't want to leave this piece out too, because you have to feel like you have leaders who make you feel that term psychologically safe, right? Because the
Mhm.
truth is, we all have jobs. And I do understand why some people are afraid, because some words are trigger words. And God, if you say that, like, some people will automatically misjudge you, particularly if they don't know you. They'll
Yeah,
cast this aspersion on you. They'll think you're negative and all these other things. So I think it takes leaders. And for me, in my situation, it really took a leader, a couple leaders, to honestly try to get to know me and create that psychological safety for me, which, so I knew that they will always have my back, that they would be there to defend me and say, no, that's not Tina, or Tina is adding it. So, to really be able to defend me. So I think that having that psychological safety mattered for me a lot, to be able to know that I'm in this space, that I'm not going to be fired because I
Mhm.
simply spoke the
that's
truth
it.
about
What's up?
different
Mhm. That's
things.
very true. That's very
That's
true.
really important, I think.
Absolutely important from that piece of it, of having a safe space to speak and really express yourself in, workspace. I think in a workspace, you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about politics, right? And then you don't talk about dirty words of like, racism, things of that nature. Because, in some aspect, it was like, that didn't happen here, right?
Hmm.
That's
But
how
it
that's
does
how we grew
happen.
up in corporate
That's
world.
right. Right.
Right.
And
And it
that's how
does
we grew up, Rochelle. And
Mm.
you said a point, we don't talk about this. And I've been sort of challenges. Why not? Like, why can't we talk about some of this stuff? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And people automatically say some terminology is divisive. But why? It doesn't have to be. If I'm simply trying to hear from you, seeking to understand you, and you're seeking to understand me, it doesn't have
happen.
to be. And I actually think that's why the world is so polarized, because let's be honest, this group is talking to this group, they're talking to this group, and people aren't talking to each other, because I think,
Together.
I'm not saying we're going to come to 100% consensus when we see life differently, but maybe I could learn something from you and you can learn it from me. So I'm honestly not afraid to lean into those topics and conversations that have traditionally been set off the table. Why?
Table.
Mhm.
I have a question for you. You said in the conversation you had, some people don't want to be called white people. What's the most
That's a
appropriate Caucasian?
I think, or European. I thought, and from what I learned
Mm,
is, I guess because it groups them in, and then we think about terminology. I guess maybe they feel
mm-hmm.
it's a negative connotation to that, but that was
Conversation.
interesting to me, because
that
I'm
is
like, but you are.
And
that
that's
is that's
well,
kind of that's eye opening. I just never thought of that
Me
at
either.
all. So, huh?
See, that's what I was saying again. It's conversations with people
learning.
when they
Right.
taught me. I'm
Yeah, you
like,
learn it.
okay, interesting.
Yeah. Okay. We
Absolutely.
all learn
Absolutely.
something new every
Learn
day.
We
something new
sure
every day.
do.
So I'm like, so how am I supposed to say this?
I know.
Our Caucasian counterpart.
Yeah, I mean, some people, and I think it's probably individual, because I think some people like, even with us, Black or African American, all these
In
different
America.
Yeah.
terminology, but they group us together. So yeah, I just found that interesting. I guess
Hmm.
you don't know really, I guess, until you talk to that. Some people might not have a problem with it, but again, it's that engaging in conversation, seeking to
Right.
understand,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And
Seeking to
then understanding
understand.
people are individuals, right? And
Yep,
Mhm.
individually, you may, Michelle, not mind being called black.
yep,
Tina, you might say, I want to be called African American. And I might say, I don't want to be called anything. I don't have any
right,
ties to Africa. That was my history and lineage was, cut off. I don't have a tie there. I'm not black. My skin color is brown. I want to be called brown, right?
right.
So
Mm,
and
yeah.
I think when you speak about that, you're
Hmm.
like individual, right? It's a human problem, and
Yeah,
if we got to know each other on a basic level, then we would come to the table being able to talk about the hard things, right? And I think if we can talk about the hard issues, we can make some headway to get past some of the struggles that we all face from that perspective.
Very.
completely agree. Can I just add one point too?
Oh,
So
of
we talk
course.
about, I truly believe in the power of individual stories. That being said, I also believe that there's collective parts of different stories that matter. And one of the things that people say often is that everybody has a story. And I agree with that. I agree. Everybody has a story, but everybody's story is different. And then some groups have a different story that we need to address. For example, in America, Black people have a certain story based on history, based on the cumulative impact that still affects system to this day. So that's why we said we need to talk about it. And we talk a lot about diversity, a lot of different dimensions of diversity, which I get it. But to be honest, sometimes that bugs me because it's true, but certain dimensions we don't want to talk about. Racial and ethnic is a huge thing that really shuts people down. But that
Mhm.
is the most polarizing thing, and why we're at this place in our country, in our world, because the racial and ethnic we don't want to deal with. Let's do it. Let's
With it.
talk about it. And let's lean into that piece and not dilute it by saying,
Hmm.
oh, these other dimensions. Of course, there are other dimensions, but let's deal with this one.
Well,
Yes.
I think what you can learn from other countries, like I spent some time in Germany, and in Germany, they have like the Holocaust is a part of the fabric.
Right.
There is no, oh, I wonder if the Holocaust happened. No, they have, statues, they have museums, they have, it's in the subway, right? And I think it's a call to that we won't ever forget.
Right.
Therefore, we won't ever repeat the exact same mistake. So having those discussions and talks is very easy and common. But here we hide
Yeah,
in
we
the
do.
U.S. like
Hmm.
slavery was a part of the fabric. The indigenous people losing their land is part of the fabric. But these are things we don't even talk about. So in
Right.
this day and age, you know, centuries later, it feels like it's just new and people are still upset because we haven't addressed it, right?
Yeah,
You have these secrets. It's the whole thing. One of my managers used to say, you're only as sick as your darkest secret. And in America,
mm,
we have these dark secrets that we don't talk about. So
Right.
they keep festering every
Yeah.
decade with a new generation because it's just compounded and it's passed to generation because it's not talked about.
geez, ladies, let me just tell you something. You're only as dark as your darkest secret. They hated Jesus, so they're gonna hate me too. so there's some there's some other ones here. So if you happen to see it on the website, I'm
Right.
telling
If
you.
I misspoke, it was like you're only as sick as your darkest secret. And that's why in
Uh-huh.
America we're
Yeah,
saying that's why
yeah,
we have these whole
right.
things
But
that
I'm just
focus us.
saying,
But
like the two of you right now. I feel like I need to get the two of you together some more. Um, and just sit in the background. But like the amount of information that we have just talked about, and the amount of things that we have just dropped, and yet yeah, we're all here in insurance, but this is such a big issue and big thing that we are talking about. And Tina, I appreciate everything that you have said and that you have and the conversation that we have had for those coming into insurance, because we need to bring it back to insurance
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Um, for those coming into insurance, what advice do you have for them? What advice could you give?
The advice I would have is be open and reach out to other people. So you'd be surprised. There are bad people in life, but there are more good people than there are bad people. There are a
mm,
lot of people who want to help you, and I say, I wish I had known the importance of terms that I didn't even know about: mentor, advocate, sponsors. I wish I knew the importance of not just doing a great job. That's the foundation, right? We're excellent. That's who many of us are. Work really hard and have that standard of excellence. But people are the network in life. You're gonna need people. So I would
people.
advise somebody new coming in is make the time to make relationships with people, and again, not just but people all throughout. Talk to people, get to know people,
Cool.
and let yourself be seen, because I think you can be great, but if nobody knows you're great, or if they don't see you, you're going to stay, and maybe that might be okay with you.
Mm,
You'll stay where you are. So I would say to people, do an excellent job. That's basic, but those relationships be seen.
That
be
is great
seen.
advice. That is
Great.
great advice.
And then too, Tina, what would you say to people like young people who are looking for careers? How do you engage them and try to give them exposures to potentially even, you know, consider insurance? I want to make insurance a platform that people, when they
Yes.
go into high school and college, are like, oh, I think I want to be an insurance professional, right? I never heard of that when I was in grammar school and high school. What are your thoughts around that and how we can do a better job of advocating for the insurance industry with the younger people?
I think we, us and are the greatest ambassadors. And by us continue this is a great podcast, by really putting forth the message again. We know it doesn't sound sexy. It doesn't, but it can. You can make a good salary. You can live a purpose by again getting involved in different volunteer activities, philanthropy. by us being the ambassadors to spread the word that you don't have to get that fulfillment that we know you seek. We know many people want to live this purpose-driven life, right? So you can find that purpose in insurance. Again, going back to being able to pay the basics, live a great life for your family. But it's a really holistic experience that you can have here. And again, I can't stress Michelle's point too. It's stable. Let's be honest. And when you see a lot of things going on, thank God, insurance is a pretty stable industry. So it's something to really consider.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, Tina, thank you so much for joining Rochelle and me today. And we really appreciate this conversation. And we may have to have you back. I feel like I say this to everybody. We're going to have you back.
We have to have you back.
I love this conversation. Michelle and Rochelle, what you guys are doing is awesome. And this was such a great conversation. I would love to be back because I feel like we just got started.
I know we did. We did just get started. So you know what? We're going to have part 2.
Exactly. Definitely talk to about religion in corporate America in that space and being a Christian and bringing your Christian walk without being a Bible thumper, right? I think that's going to be important too. So we can have more discussion around topics of that too as well, right?
Oh, yes, we definitely can. Right. So again, thank you for coming to us, and everybody who's watching us, thank you for joining us on the web series of the Sisterhood. I want to say like us, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We see you, we hear you, we are you. Join Rochelle and I in the After Sisterhood podcast because we are going to be unpacking everything that Tina has said and all the nuggets, and who knows, you may find a t-shirt.
Hey, absolutely. Thank you, Tina. This has been a really great discussion, and I really appreciate you bringing yourself to the table and talking to us today.
Thank you both so much. Pleasure.
Thank you.